First, I need to apologize, guys. Jace, I know what I did was wrong. You have every right to be angry. I have no excuse. I'm not even sure now why I did it. Was it worth the pain I've been going through? No way in hell would I ever be that stupid again, not for anything. But Kathy has explained to me that being sorry and apologizing won't change a thing. If you can't forgive me, I know I screwed up and destroyed a good marriage. What I need to do now is convince you to give me another chance. Will you promise to talk to me? If after we finish these sessions and I still can't forgive me, I'll walk away and not fight the divorce. I looked between her and Kathy. I could see her hand in this. Maybe those individual sessions had helped after all. I spoke. She was obviously waiting for me to say something. I know that speech took a lot out of you, Beck. I was thinking about it for the last few days. We've known 5 couples over the years who've split up over cheating that have gone to counseling to try to save their marriage. How many made it? I checked 1, Gary and Sherry, and they don't cuddle in public. The little touches they used to give each other all the time are gone. It's been 2 years, and they're still not back yet. Could you live like that, knowing I'd always suspect you if you were gone even for an hour or 2? If I automatically tried to verify everything you told me, stopped in your purse, checked your computer and cell phone on a regular basis? I couldn't. She was flinching at my words like each was a physical blow, but kept a determined look on her face. If I got to cuddle with you every night in bed, I could. I'd do anything and everything I could to reassure you, to show you I've changed and you could trust me again. I threw up my hands. Ah, there it is, another of the magic words, trust. Exactly how would you get me to trust you again? You went out when we were dating, lying about it when we hadn't even made a commitment yet. I should have seen it then. Now, years later, after being together for all this time, planning a family, a future, you do it again. Were you lonely this time too, bored because I was out trying to build a business and a better future for us and didn't have time to go to dance clubs or out on the town? I was finally letting go of some of the poison and it felt good. Becky was looking horrified at my words, like each was a physical blow, but kept a determined look on her face. If I got to cuddle with you every night in bed, I could. I'd do anything and everything I could to reassure you, to show you I've changed and you could trust me again. I threw up my hands. Ah, there it is, another of the magic words, trust. Exactly how would you get me to trust you again? You went out when we were dating, lying about it when we hadn't even made a commitment yet. I should have seen it then. Now, years later, after being together for all this time, planning a family, a future, you do it again. Were you lonely this time too, bored because I was out trying to build a business and a better future for us and didn't have time to go to dance clubs or out on the town? I was finally letting go of some of the poison and it felt good. Becky was looking horrified at my words, like each was a physical blow, but kept a determined look on her face. If I got to cuddle with you every night in bed, I could. I'd do anything and everything I could to reassure you, to show you I've changed, and you could. Trust me again. I threw up my hands. Ah, there it is, another of the magic words, trust. Exactly how would you get me to trust you again? You went out when we were dating, lying about it when we hadn't even made a commitment yet. I should have seen it then. Now, years later, after being together for all this time, planning a family, a future, you do it again. Were you lonely this time too, bored because I was out trying to build a business and a better future for us and didn't have time to go to dance clubs or out on the town? I was finally letting go of some of the poison and it felt good. Becky was looking horrified. Kathy stepped in. Our time is up. I want you to do some homework for me before our next meeting. Becky, I want you to think about what Jay said. Tell him in detail how you plan to get him to trust you. Jace, I need you to think about it too. Do you think you can get over your rage and try to rebuild a relationship with Becky? Be honest and clear. That's all until next week. Jace, could I see you for just a second before you leave? Good night, Becky. We stood and watched as she went to her car, sitting there for 5 minutes before pulling out. Kathy looked at me. You absolutely never taking her back, are you? No, I said sadly. I didn't think so. We need to refocus the sessions, get her used to the idea, let her down slowly. If you have any love left for her, break it to her gently. Gently didn't work, we tried, Kathy and I, but she just refused to give up. I tried every way I could think of, and some from Kathy, but I never got her to understand. In the end, I just stopped it. You broke your most solemn vow, Beck. Made it look easy. Even now, I know you regret what came of it, but deep down, I get the feeling you can't see what you did is serious. Where I considered it life-altering, you liken it to spending too much money, wrecking the car, something along those lines. Didn't you feel anything when you did it? She didn't give me a direct answer, as usual. Talk about feelings. You're the one turned to stone. Give me one more chance, please. How can you sit there with no emotion while I fall to pieces? You still don't get it, do you? There's plenty of emotion inside me. It's emotion, not intelligence, that makes us human. All animals think at some level, but who besides humans feel love, hate, desire? Not any other species. I've just gotten better at controlling them. I let her talk another 30 minutes before I held up my hand. It's over, Beck. Accept it and move on. Understand, I still love you, but it isn't enough anymore. The divorce is final in 4 weeks. It's best for both of us. You're still a young, beautiful woman. You'll find someone else. When you do, if you ever get tempted, think of us. He will deserve your best. I walked out, my heart breaking all over again as I heard her wail. Kathy called me 2 days later. I just finished a session with Becky. You know I can't tell you what we talked about, but she still thinks she can win you back. Watch for her. I know she'll be around, and I'm worried. I'm really sorry it ended this way. I think you should continue seeing me for a while. Shall we make an appointment? I thought about it. Not right now. I'll call you in a month or so. Thanks for everything, Kathy. Kathy was right. She had one last hurrah before she gave up. I loved all of her family except her oldest brother. He was a cop, a shift commander, arrogant and a bully. We tolerated each other. He took to pulling me over regularly just to mess with me and demand I forgive his sister. I talked to Paul, he had me log the next 4 stops, and the good commander found himself explaining his interest to me to the assistant chief. The stops halted, and it didn't make him like me more. It was 2 weeks before the final hearing, the sun was shining, spring was in the air, and I was feeling happy for the first time in a long while. The Yamaha was humming right along that Saturday morning when the lights came on behind me. I pulled over, getting my license out, not looking at him when he tasered me, put me in cuffs, and threw me in the back of his car. I had just come around when he stopped at a nearby park, hauled me out while I ranted, and handcuffed me to a bench. Then he took the original cuffs off and used them to hook Becky to me. You'll listen now. I'll be back in 45 minutes, and I better see smiling faces, he said. Becky babbled while I tried to clear my head, apologizing for what was happening. Can we talk now, baby? I looked at her, trying to find the woman I'd married in her eyes. She wasn't there. Like I have a choice, I said, smiling. Just hand me my phone. She got my phone out and handed it to me. I dialed 911. 911, state your emergency. This is J.C. Gooding. I'm in Armstrong Park, the bench on the south side near the gazebo, and I've been kidnapped and handcuffed to the bench with another person. I repeat, I've been kidnapped. Becky was looking horrified, trying to wrestle the phone out of my hand. She was screaming. There were a lot of people in the park, and some were coming over. Sir, a car has been dispatched. Do you know your abductor? Shift Commander Jeff Sterling. I'm handcuffed to his sister. Help! The car must have been in the neighborhood. He was there in less than 2 minutes. Becky was still screaming while he tried to remove the cuffs. Her brother came roaring up, sliding across the grass and scattering onlookers. "I got this, patrolman," he said, looking at me. "If you leave me in his custody, it makes you an accomplice. Jail time maybe, loss of career definitely. Call someone higher up the food chain." He made the call, and soon 6 cop cars surrounded us. Nobody was arrested, pending investigation, and I was taken back to my bike. They hit the fan the next day. Dumbers had everything on dashcam. Me stopping him with the taser and cuffs, the whole thing, until he stuffed me into the car. I could have pressed charges: assault, kidnapping, unlawful use of a police vehicle, the list went on. Becky would be charged as an accomplice. I had Paul with me when we met the DA to discuss the incident. My client will make this easy for everyone. He won't press charges if the officer is disciplined in-house, and his wife agrees not to appear at their final divorce hearing and ceases all contact with him. Your choice and theirs, but if they decide not to take the deal, I'll go after them hard. Understand? They had no choice. Their parents didn't want to see 2 of their 3 children through bars. So, the deal was accepted. Her brother didn't get off without pay. He was demoted, assigned the graveyard shift, reprimanded. His chances of promotions again were minuscule. He couldn't quit because no other agency would touch him. So, it was finally over. I went back to my successful business and found a hot young blonde with big jugs who loved me for my tender heart and convinced me there was still sweetness and light in the world. Actually, I lost my friends, my business, and my wife. It was a while before I even looked at another woman. My business tanked because everyone knew the situation we were in and didn't give us any more contracts. Luckily, Ida got the offer she deserved and took her trainee with her, then quit soon after. The next month I walked into the office. There was a note on the door. "You win, you scum sucker. Ethan found another job. The paperwork is on your desk, sign it, and the company is officially dissolved." She didn't sign it, but I recognized Anna's writing. There was actually a little money left, and after I got my half of the house sale, I was in pretty good shape. I could even take the next year off if I wanted. I took 2 months, got on the Roadstar, and went rambling. I ended up 3 states down, well below the Mason-Dixon line. It was one of the prettiest cities I'd ever seen, surrounded by mountains, with friendly people and a relaxed atmosphere. It kind of felt like I'd landed in the 60s because the people all seemed so laid back. I stayed 3 days, hitting tourist traps, doing research. I checked out a few more towns, but none had the same vibe. So, I came back, got a room for a week, and went house hunting. I looked at some condos and apartments, but I became partial to houses with decent yards. I found what I wanted on the 3rd try, a small cottage, 1,220 square feet, 2 bedrooms, with a huge yard and a stream running across the back. It was set apart a good distance from the nearest neighbor. At least for a year with an option to buy. Next, I went job hunting, finding one at a small firm that catered to up-and-coming and mid-sized companies. They gave me a few small accounts to see how good I was. In 6 months, the boss wanted to talk. I had to tell him I was not short for Jason. My name was actually John Charles, and I had been called JC up until my sister was about 4. She pronounced it JC and then shortened it to Jace. It stuck, and I quit fighting it years ago. In that peculiar Southern way, when the conversation was important, he used both my given names. "John Charles, you've been doing very good work, so good I wondered why you were here. I checked up on what you put on your resume, and it was all true. I have a feeling you won't stay with us long, so I'm going to use you hard. I'm giving you a new account. He's a friend of mine who owns a very successful regional winery and wants to take his product national. Go talk to him, set up some meetings, and start thinking. This could be very good for all of us, and if I grow, I want you along." I was flattered that he thought so highly of me. The vintner was a local who had trained and studied in Italy for 6 years before coming home to take care of his aging parents. He took over their farm and used the north-facing slopes to grow vines he had imported from the region he trained in. He started out small, adding acreage and expanding the winery as he could. Now he leased 3 more farms and had doubled his own acreage. He'd won several local and regional medals for his sweet wines and wanted to crack the national market. He had already secured a distributor, now he needed an ad campaign to bring his product into the limelight. I stopped by, did an anonymous wine tasting. Most were quite good, some I didn't care for. I finally introduced myself and asked for Mr. Edwards. He came hustling in farm clothes. We shook hands, and he asked me why I hadn't made an appointment. I wanted to taste your product, observe your operation, maybe work on some ideas. I don't expect you to drop everything to talk to me, just wanted you to know I stopped by and make that appointment in person. What do you think of my wines? He seemed anxious. I liked most of them, but then I'm no expert. But I liked them so much, I bought a mixed case to take home. While I was talking, an idea was germinating. I couldn't wait to get back and start developing it. It was not to be. Jack, as he insisted on first names, had me follow him around for a while, explaining the winery, the origin of the vines, everything he could think to tell me. I ended up spending 3 hours with him personally. I spent my off time exploring the area, turning the roadstar loose on those winding mountain roads. I'd had a little work done that boosted power, and she could scoot if I opened her up. I took some money and bought a well-used but reliable 4-wheel drive truck. The roads could be quite snowy here. I kept my car, a little Dodge Dart, it was more than enough for a single person. And I bought the top-of-the-line turbo package. It was supposed to do over 180, but I never got it over 110, and that was just twice. The car and the bike were garaged, and the truck stayed outside. I was wandering around one Saturday afternoon when I ran across a little bar in the middle of nowhere. There were a few bikes out front, mostly Harleys, but there was a Goldwing and a few crotch rockets, so I decided to stop for a beer. The place kind of went quiet for a minute, they could tell I wasn't a local. I ordered my beer and looked the place over. It was old but clean and neat. The patrons seemed to all know each other, and the insults and banter flowed easily. The bartender talked a little. After he served the second round, he said, "It's been in my family for 70 years, talking about the place. We've got a good reputation. No fights, nobody bothers anybody, especially a woman. That'll get you booted fast, faster than anything." I complimented him, knowing the value of a place where you could relax, be it with a crowd of suits and dresses or jeans and short skirts. People were people, basically the same despite income levels. He liked the praise, said the next round was on him, and left. A huge bearded guy took the stool next to me. "Yours?" he said, looking through the window at my bike. "Yeah," I said. "Another rice grinder. What happened?" "They don't sell real bikes made in America where you come from." He was trying to take the sting out when he said it. "Which one is yours?" I asked. He pointed at an older chopped-out Harley. "Nice ride," I grinned. "The forks are from Italy, the carbs, if they stock, came from Japan, the tires, again if they stock, were made by a British firm, manufactured in France." "Still think it's all American?" He stared at me. "No," I nodded. "Still, nice bikes though." After that, half the bar was in on the discussion. One guy said his Vulcan was made right here in the US. We ended up going out to look at all of them. By the time we came back, I had a new set of friends. I ended up hanging at the bar most weekends, going on poker runs, just riding in a group when the urge took us. They showed me a lot of places I would never have known existed. I got my nickname 3 months later. I had been to see Jack Edwards about the campaign we were planning. I was hoping to get him to let us shoot a commercial in his tasting room. It was wood, stone, and glass, with a high ceiling and lots of natural light. After I explained, he was all for it, if we could do it on a Monday, his slowest sales day. He gave me a case of wines I hadn't tasted yet, just for an opinion. Many of his wines had names linked to the area. MIA Red was named for the old grist mill on the edge of his property. Yankee Orchard White was named for a friend's apple orchard, a transplanted New Yorker who specialized in rare and new varieties. Juice from his pink lady apples was mixed with a medium white, and it was really smooth tasting, like fresh apples with just a hint of grape. It had been a long day, and I needed to unwind. As it happened, I had to go right by the bar on the way home. Forgetting how I was dressed, I walked in. There was silence for a minute, then the laughter and ribbing started. "Where you been? A funeral," laughed Fat Bob, the first guy I'd talked to when I found the place. We'd become pretty good friends, to the point I sometimes loaned him my truck if his bike was down and he needed to haul it to the shop. I was about to explain when another voice rang out, "Who's the 3 of 4? I didn't even need to turn around. Amanda Patterson, known in the bar as Baby Doll because she had just turned 20 and was barely 5 feet tall. She was cute, a redhead with a hair-trigger temper and had a mouth that would make drill instructors blush. She was sort of a mascot, and nobody hit on her unless she wanted, and I never saw her want. "Hi, Amanda. I got all dressed up to ask for your hand in marriage." I got down on my knee while the bar roared. She flamed red, and the temper came out. Her opinion of love and marriage was well. I was sure there was history there somewhere, plus she hated being called Amanda. That ain't funny, **** hole. And what the hell are you laughing at? Don't make me go to your bumps. That made them laugh harder. I refused to take that as a no more of, "I'll think about it." "Do I need to wear the suit until you decide to make an honest man out of me?" She pushed me backwards and stomped off to the kitchen. Fat Bob helped me up. "I wouldn't order anything tonight, she'll probably spit on it or worse." Amanda helped out in the kitchen on the weekend for tips and meals. I found out from Ellen, one of the bartenders, that she'd had a rough life, was broke, and living in a women's shelter during the week and sleeping at the bar on a cot in the back room on the weekends. It wasn't exactly legal, but who was going to tell? Sheck, a good kid down on her luck. We'd hire her full-time if we could afford it. I asked her how she ate during the week and why she didn't have a job. Soup kitchens, I suppose. I never really asked. I think she has a juvie record and she hasn't finished high school, has no transportation, and that makes her job prospects pretty slim. Amanda was there almost every night, not leaving until she had to go back to make sure she had a bed for the night. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I wanted to feel connected to another human being, maybe I wanted to be able to give her hope. I struck a deal with Helen and Sam, the owner. I'd pay for her meals during the week. Sam agreed to let her wait tables and clean up for hours a night for $100 a week cash, which I paid half. I supplied the cash on the condition that she absolutely could not know I had anything to do with it. "Here," I said, giving Ellen $200. "Take her shopping. She needs new clothes. Tell her she can pay you back out of her wages, $20 a week." She said it was the first time she'd ever seen her cry. Not extravagant, she bought new underwear, 3 pairs of the cheapest jeans she could find, and 4 plain t-shirts, 2 pairs of markdown sneakers, and she was done. I thought about it as Ellen told me Becky would pay more for a pair of shoes she didn't really like that much, wear them 3 or 4 times, and get rid of them. She probably spent more than Amanda made for a month on makeup and accessories alone. She didn't come out of the kitchen the rest of the night. Helen said later she thought she might have cried a little, blaming it on chopping onions. I felt bad, hoping I hadn't hurt her feelings too much. So, I got the nickname Suit, which everybody thought was pretty funny. I actually made it a point if I was near of stopping in with my work clothes on from time to time. Every time I'd wear one, I'd ask her if she'd changed her mind. She still cussed me every time, but now she smiled. The whole bar petted her. I never really thought about how she felt about anything until one night when a new guy was hitting on her. She fought him off with a smile, but he was getting worse. When she bent over at the next table to pick up the empties, he pinched her on her bum. I sighed and was almost there without even thinking. She screamed, turned, and dumped a half-full draft in his face. Which he said, pulling back to slap her. I grabbed his arm and yanked him off the chair. Sam and Fat Boy got there in time to keep me from hitting him. Amanda slapped the hell out of him as we got him up. Don't ever touch me again, ****. Next time my fiancé won't be held off. She blushed when she realized what she said and ran into the kitchen. She came out later thanking me for my help. I grinned. Couldn't have my future bride hurt, now could I? I know you didn't mean it, but it might be wise to let the jerks that hit on you know you're claimed. Think about it. She surprised the whole bar by kissing my cheek after the whistles and yells died down. She told them she'd kick their asses if they laughed at her and her boyfriend again. This really set them off, and she fled back into the kitchen. 3 weeks later, there was a poker run that I signed up for. We met at the bar, and they opened up the kitchen for breakfast. After we'd eaten and were lining up, I felt a tug on my sleeve. Amanda looked embarrassed but determined. Can I ride with you? Why not? Sure, if you have a helmet. She held up one. F-boy loaned it to me. She was in jeans and a tee. It was going to be cool this time of morning. Go get your jacket, it'll be awfully cold if you don't. She hung her head. I don't have one. Haven't needed it yet. I sighed, and she got behind me, keeping her hands down. Ever been on a bike before? I asked. She nodded. Then you know you have to hold on. Come on, I won't hurt you. It won't be safe unless you do. Everybody knew she hated being touched. She reluctantly put her hands around my waist. I started out slow until she relaxed. I dropped out after a mile, swinging into a Walmart. Why are we here? To get you a jacket. I can feel your shivers through my coat. If you want, you can pay me back, or you can accept it as a gift for riding with me. Either way, we're not leaving until you have one. She pouted and moaned, but I dragged her in and got her a nice little jacket and scarf, even got gloves, which made her whine even more. If you don't stop, I'm leaving you here. You need these. I don't want you sick because of your stubbornness. Now smile and thank me for being a nice guy. She smirked. Thanks, ****. If you want to piss your money away, I'll let you. Can we catch up with the guys now? We caught up to them at the second checkpoint. By then, she had snuggled in behind me with a firm grip. The halfway point was lunch at a nice buffet-style restaurant. She acted like she'd wait by the bike. I leaned in close. Get your tiny little bum into the restaurant right now. If you don't, I'll throw you over my shoulder and carry you in. We clear? She nodded, looking pissed. Didn't stop her from stuffing herself though. At the end of the day, she was more relaxed. We won a prize, a gift certificate for $100 at a Harley dealership. I gave it to her, putting my hand firmly over her mouth when she started to protest. I left it for a few seconds, and when I removed it, she didn't say anything, but her eyes were blazing. If looks could kill. Things went downhill on the way back. It started raining, a cold drizzle getting harder. We were less than a mile from my house and 10 from the bar, so I turned off. When we pulled into my garage, she got off the bike, took off her new coat, gloves, and scarf, and threw them onto the floor along with the gift certificate. Her face was a mask of rage and pain. She had misunderstood the situation completely. You think because you bought me a few things, you were automatically getting some? Shove these things up, you prick. She turned around, stalking out. It took me a minute or two to recover and calm down, then I got into my Dart and went looking. She'd set a fast pace and had gone almost a quarter of a mile. It was raining hard by then. I pulled over just past her. Get in the car, Amanda. Go to hell, she said, trying to walk past. I grabbed her arm. You have a choice here. You can get in the car, and I'll drive you back to the bar, or you can refuse, and I'll throw you in the car after I paddle that stubborn bum until you see reason. Your choice. She tried to push past me. You wouldn't dare. Suits don't do things like this. I was twice her size and pretty pissed. I had her slammed face down on the hood in 3 seconds, my first smack landing right between her cheeks. She screamed, more from surprise than pain. I landed 2 more before she started begging me to stop. "I'll get in the car. I'll be good, I promise. Please, no more." By now, I had calmed down and was a little ashamed. I let go of her and opened the passenger door. She slid in without hesitation. We had gone a mile when she started to talk. I held up my hand. "Not a word, or I'll pull over and finish what I started. Then I'll leave you where you are. Understand?" She nodded, wide-eyed. I pulled into the parking lot, reached over, and threw her door open. "Out, now." She got out. I slammed the door, pulled onto the highway, and turned the turbo loose, shredding tires. I didn't go back for 3 weeks, waiting until after she had to leave before I walked in, giving Helen the coat, scarf, and gloves. "Here, they're for Amanda. She can wear them, burn them, or stick them up her bum. I don't really care." Helen and Sam looked at me in shock. Then Helen grinned and slapped me. "What the hell was that for?" I asked, rubbing my cheek. "That's for making us put up with a screaming witch for 3 weeks. We wondered what happened when you dropped out." Then, baby doll came in, went straight into the back, and started crying. She cried for 3 days before I got it out of her. She's had a miserable life so far, abused and abandoned at 15, foster homes until she was 18, and then she was out on the streets. Apparently, she hooked up with a flaming a-hole who tried to turn her out. Take it easy on her, Suit. She doesn't know how to handle someone kind and decent. It's a foreign concept to her. She thinks if someone is nice to her, they want something, usually something she doesn't want to give. She stopped grinning again. She runs to the door every time she hears a bike, hoping it's you. She'd fry in hell before she'd admit it, but she has a huge crush on you. It's gone from witching to whimpering. Give the girl a break. Show up while she's here, give her a kind word before she tears every head in the bar off. I went to the bar the next night, driving the Dart and wearing a suit. "Amanda, get your skinny bum out here." She peeked out of the kitchen, fear on her face. I gentled my tone. "Come on, baby doll. I just want to talk." She eased out into the bar, looking like she was ready to run any second. I had already talked to Sam and Helen, so they knew what I was going to do. "Sam, tell her she's fired." Her face went pale, and Helen laughed. "Just for tonight." "Han, you still have your job." "That's right, you're still employed, just not tonight." "Tonight, we're going out. First, I'll take you to a place that serves real food." "Hey," said Sam and Helen together, but they were smiling. Let me rephrase that. Somewhere where burgers and fries aren't considered a full meal. Then I thought we'd see a movie, one of those tearjerkers little girls like you love. Get cleaned up while I drink a beer. People were laughing, and she was red. She unconsciously rubbed her jeans. "Jace, I'm not really dressed to." 10 minutes, Amanda, or we repeat what happened the night it rained. Clear? She squealed and shot into the back room. I looked at Helen. Go back there, use some of your makeup to help her feel pretty, calm her down. It's just dinner and a movie. She surprised everybody by giving me a huge kiss. Maybe they'd seen an odd. When she came out, cheeks glowing, Helen had helped her with her hair, put a little lipstick on her. She looked great. I put her hand under my arm, opened the door for her, while the gang grinned. They watched from the door as I opened the door to the car and buckled her in. I could hear faint cheers as I drove away. "Anywhere special you'd like to eat?" I asked as we sped along. I couldn't help driving fast. She had hardly spoken. "Anywhere is fine," she said, looking out the window. I pulled over in an office lot. "Look at me, Amanda." She turned her head. "When I ask you a question, I expect a straight answer. Now, again, where would you like to eat? Would you like to try something new? Italian? Thai? Anything at all?" She looked down and in a voice so small I almost didn't hear her, said, "I've always wanted to try lobster, but you don't have to spend that much money." For an answer, I took her to Red Lobster and got her a plate that had lobster in 3 different styles. She was tentative at first, but gained confidence as she ate. She even tried to get me to take a bite once. "Sorry, Amanda, I don't like lobster." "Then why did we come here?" she asked in confusion. "Because you wanted to try lobster. Besides, I've enjoyed the shrimp." That made her happy, and she had no trouble sampling my shrimp when I offered. After dinner, we went to the movies. There were 8 choices, and I let her pick. I didn't think she was a horror fan, but apparently, the gorier, the better for her. After the movie, we went to an ice cream parlor, and she got a large banana split with 2 spoons. For a tiny thing, she sure ate a lot. Everything was perfect until we passed a bank with the time and temperature flashing. Oh. What, baby doll? Oh, should I've stayed out too late to sleep in the homeless shelter? I guess you'll have to take me back to the bar. All right, I said, driving her straight to my house. She sat frozen while I turned off the car and the garage door closed. "Amanda, listen to me very carefully. I have 2 bedrooms. One of them will be yours for the night, and it has a lock. You can sleep in a comfortable bed, take an ice shower. I'll even throw in breakfast. No strings attached, nothing owed, nothing expected. Up to you. I'm going inside now. If you don't trust me, lock the doors and recline the seat, and I'll wake you in the morning." It was 30 minutes before she came in. "Where's the bedroom?" I showed it to her, showed her where the towels were, gave her a shirt to sleep in, and went to bed, laughing quietly as I locked my own door. She must sleep like a rock because I had showered, dressed, and had breakfast done before I knocked on her door. Time to get up, sleepy head. Breakfast is ready. I poured coffee, plated the ham and cheese omelette, placed the toast on the table, and waited. I had just about given up when she stumbled into the kitchen, still in my t-shirt. It hung to her knees. She looked 11. Being slow to wake didn't hurt her appetite any, and she cleaned her plate. We stacked the dishes into the sink, and I picked up my travel mug. "Where do you want me to drop you?" She looked surprised. "I don't know. I usually hang out at the library until time to go to work, but it'll be 2 hours before it's open. I guess you can drop me by the park." I didn't like that idea. Bum slept in the park, no way. I wanted her there, especially that early. "I tell you what, hang out here. I'll take the truck to work, and I'll meet you after I get off. You can take the dart to the bar, scratch it, and you better run for your life. Understand?" Her eyes were huge. "You trust me that much?" I grinned. "You going to steal from me?" She went bright red. I cut her off before she could talk. "I didn't think so. In fact, I need the oil changed. Think you could drive it to the Dodge dealership for me? It's already paid for, so you don't have to worry about that. I'll call when they open. Will you do it if they can work you in?" She was just nodding her head. I surprised her by kissing her cheek, backing up before she could react. "Thanks, honey. I'll call as soon as I find out. Watch television, eat anything you like. I'll see you later." She was rubbing the cheek I kissed as I walked out. Everybody at work remarked on my good mood. A secretary asked me if I'd gotten laid. She said it kind of snippy. She'd made a run at me right after I'd started working there, and I'd turned her down. She was in her middle 30s, a little older than me. I finished pouring my coffee before I turned to her. As a matter of fact, Gail, I spent the night with a hot little redhead almost 10 years younger than me. Remember the energy you had at that age? I'm lucky I can walk. I left her open-mouthed to the laughter of everyone else. She did get the oil changed for me. I stopped by home to change and was amazed at how clean it was. It literally sparkled from top to bottom. She must have been at it all day. I had called Fat Boy, and he came by to pick me up so I could retrieve my car. He was grinning ear to ear. What, you and baby doll, huh? Is she as hot in bed as she looks? I looked at him and grinned. You're a dirty old man, you know that. All she got last night was a bed, alone. If you say so, he said, still grinning. I wasn't prepared for what happened when we got there. She ran to me, jumping up so I had to catch her, and gave me a big kiss. Electricity shot through me so hard I fought the urge to look at my shoes to see if the soles were blown out. The bar held. Shut up, she yelled. This is how a woman is supposed to greet her man. I was surprised at the display of emotion. She spent every minute she could close to me, to the point Sam told her if she didn't get to work, he was going to fire her scrawny bum. When I got ready to leave, she asked if I'd stay a bit longer and drive her back to the shelter. How could I refuse? I warmed the car and waited. She came out with a big backpack that I had to put in the trunk. What's in here? Everything I own, she said, sliding into the passenger seat. There's no place safe for me to store it at the shelter. Somebody would steal it in a blink. I thought about what a sad way that was to live as I drove. When I missed the turn to the shelter, she questioned it. If I don't get there soon, I won't have anywhere to sleep. You're not sleeping there tonight. You've got a room at my house. You've earned it, cleaning the house and running errands for me today. Consider it a thank you. She started to protest, thought better of it, and turned the radio to a station I hated, cranking the volume. Tonight, instead of going straight to bed, she took a shower, put on one of my tees, and flopped on the couch, grabbed the remote, and started channel surfing. Hey, I was watching that. It's boring as suit. Besides, I'm your guest here. She settled on some show about for girls and a secret they shared. I lasted 5 minutes. If you're going to watch stuff that turns your brain to mush, I'm going to bed before I get infected. Good night, Amanda. I could still hear the TV blaring when I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, she woke me up banging on my door. Breakfast, sleepy head, she said, parting me from the day before. Eat it while it's hot. Sausage, home fries, and grits. I was still getting used to them not being from the South. I will admit they were growing on me. You don't keep much food around, do you? She asked as I ate. Single guy, not home much, no reason to, I said around a bite of sausage. She stacked the dishes when I was done. Do you need a ride tonight? I asked as I walked out the door. I'm off tonight, she said, but don't worry about me. I have things to do. Will I see you tonight? She grinned. Maybe. You have a good day now. I thought about her often all day. She was getting under my skin. I dated some since Becky, nothing serious, not on a regular basis, but enough to keep the edge off. In a moment of reflection, I had to wonder how much my feelings for her were pity and how much was attraction. I ran the reasons for and against trying to start a relationship with her. She was way too young, I felt like a cradle robber. She was wounded, loud, profane, irritating beyond words sometimes. We had nothing in common. Her temper had a hair trigger, and many times she acted before she thought. But in the rare times she let her guard down, she was sweet and loving. She was smart, strong, dealing with a miserable fate with all the dignity she could. It occurred to me she'd be a great mother. Fierce and protective. The thought of that tiny body 9 months pregnant made me smile. And though she didn't know it, she was beautiful. Or would be if she dressed better and learned to use makeup. And the beauty went much deeper than her skin. I wondered where she had gone as I drove home. The thought of her in the shelter depressed me no end. She deserved better. The smell hit me when I walked in the door. I don't know what it was, but it made my mouth water. She must have heard the door because she came out of the kitchen, hair in a ponytail, wearing an apron. I stood amazed when she went up on her toes to kiss my cheek. Hi, honey. How was work, was all she got out before she almost collapsed, laughing at the expression on my face. Then she got serious. I made you dinner, nothing fancy. I'm a good cook, but I haven't had much opportunity to practice lately. It'll be ready in 30 minutes. Sit down, I'll get you a beer, or would you rather have tea? After we eat, I need to talk to you. There it was, that determined look she had. I knew it had to be serious. Tea would be fine. Anything I can do to help? She seemed to let out a sigh of relief. I got it, sit. Dinner was great: roast pork, basil and rosemary roasted potatoes, asparagus, and homemade bread. Probably the best meal I'd ever eaten. I stuffed myself, then got a little embarrassed. She smiled. I'll take the mass consumption as a compliment. Ready for dessert? She had made a banana pudding, one of the things I'd learned to love about the South. I was almost comatose when I pushed back from the table. She sent me into the living room while she cleaned up. When she was done, she pulled a chair directly in front of the couch. Did you like supper? Is the house clean enough for you? Maybe all. I've never seen the house cleaner, and dinner was excellent. Where did you learn to cook like that? She looked sad for a minute. Mama wasn't much, but she was a hell of a cook. She taught me a lot before the alcohol got her. I wanted to hug her so badly right then. She shook off her memories and looked me in the eye. I want to make a deal with you, John Charles. I'd like to rent a room from you. I can give you $50 a week, plus I'll cook and clean the house, do the laundry, I'll even mow the yard. I won't get in your way. Please, these last couple of nights have made me happier than I've been in a long time. I just can't face going back to the shelter. Please. She looked at me full of hope, then her face collapsed like a balloon losing air, and tears started. I'll get my things, will you drive me to the shelter? No, you're not going anywhere until I talk, so sit, listen, and don't interrupt. Promise me. Her face was a mixture of fear and hope. She nodded. I'm happy to let you live with me under these conditions. 1. You will not pay me anything, your rent will be keeping the house clean, doing the food shopping, and making the meals. 2. I enjoy yard work, so I'll do that. 3. You keep your job at the bar, you can drive the dart for work and household needs. 4. And this is the big one, you have to go back to school, get your adult high school diploma, or at the very least a GED. She sat with her mouth open. I knew she was ashamed over her lack of education, maybe this would force her to do something about it. She finally nodded her head. I'll do it. But on the school thing, will you help me? I'll need it. I relaxed, smiling. I'll do everything short of actually doing it for you. Do we have a deal? She jumped into my lap, kissing me until she realized what she was doing and jumped back off. Sorry, she said, flaming red. I've got one more condition. You have to give me a good night kiss every night and one before I go to work every morning. No deal otherwise. She glowed again, then grinned, holding out her hand. Deal. We shook and began a wonderful and curious stage of our lives. I asked her the next morning where the food had come from. She gave me the receipts, I paid her back, then gave her my debit card, telling her to shop for food and anything else she thought we might need. I grinned all the way to work, my cheek tingling from the goodbye kiss. You couldn't have wiped the smile off my face that day with a stick of dynamite. Gail got catty again. See you, little jailbait honey, last night? Yes, and this morning. She moved in last night. You should find someone, Gail. It'll make you a much nicer person. Her look as I left would have soured milk. The guys at the bar gave me grief but smiled when they did it. Sam shook my hand, and Helen kissed my cheek. You're a good man, Suit. I knew she'd get you sooner or later. We're just roommates, Helen. Nothing going on. She just grinned wider. If you say so. Amanda smiled so hard I thought her cheeks would get a cramp when she saw me. I was about to order a burger when she stopped me. Your supper is in the fridge, microwave 3 minutes. I hope you like it. I had one beer, shot a game of pool with Fat Boy, and went home to a nice dinner. She got off work at 9:30 when the kitchen closed and was home by 10 o'clock. She went straight to the shower. I smelled like old fries, she said when she came out in a robe with a towel wrapped around her head. What's on television? So, we settled into a domestic routine. I did the yard work, washed the vehicles, while she did the house. She cooked most of the meals, but I insisted on taking her out to eat or grilling for her once a week on Sundays. If it was pretty, we'd ride, either alone or with our group. She got a new nickname, Mrs. Suit, which she grumbled about, but did so with a grin. Her 21st birthday came, and I surprised her with a party at the bar. She even got presents. Soon she was crying, a rare display of emotion for her. She shocked everyone by hugging them in thanks. I gave her a day at a spa, complete with hair and makeup, and a gift certificate to an upscale department store. I'd like to see you out of those jeans, I grinned as she colored. Helen got onto me, telling me it was time to step up and make an honest woman out of her. I don't know how she feels about me, I confessed. That you're the biggest dumb in the state. She loves you, but she doesn't know how to love. You need to teach her, it'll be worth it. How do you know so much? She hugged Sam when he walked up. Because 15 years ago, I was her. Then I met Sam, and though it took a while, he opened me up, made me understand there were good men in the world. I just hadn't found one until I met him. I'd been with a bike gang for 3 years, they did terrible things to me, and I let them because I thought that was what I deserved. They messed me up so bad I couldn't have kids. He loved me anyway. How could I fight that? The age difference is bigger than you and Amanda, and we made it. Take it to the next level, Suit, you'll never regret it. From what you said, she's nothing like your ex. I had told them a little about Becky and me about 6 months ago when we'd had them over to dinner, and Amanda had run to the store. She was doing really well in school. She had opted, with my urging, to go for a full high school diploma instead of the GED. We estimated it would take another 2 months, and she could graduate. They held full graduation ceremonies twice a year as recognition of their accomplishments. Some of the graduates would be in their 60s, but most were like Amanda, kids that got lost in the system. I promised her a party when it happened. I almost had a heart attack when she used my birthday present. She had on a very nice sundress, blindingly white earrings and a necklace. I had never seen her with jewelry on. In 3-inch platform sandals, her hair was teased into a widely flowing style, her thick locks drifting down her back. She was so beautiful it made me ache. What do you think? She said, twirling around. Did you get your money's worth? I'd say the first thing that came to mind. All they did was polish a diamond, baby. You've always been this beautiful. The man that gets you will be the luckiest on the planet. She stopped in mid-laugh, her eyes filled with tears, and she bolted to her room. What had I done now? She came home from school the next week, giggling. What's up? I said, glad she was in a good mood. I got asked out by this really cute guy. We've been talking off and on for a month. I felt like someone had driven a stake through my heart. Oh, was all I said, turning away. She was on me in a flash. That's all you've got to say. Oh, I was defensive. What would you like me to say? You're obviously interested, you've been flirting for a month. Why should I stop you? She went into her room, slamming the door. I sighed, that had been happening a lot lately. I was going to have it rehung if she kept this up. I knocked, but she refused to answer. Giving up, I got a beer out and wallowed in misery. By my third, I was pondering the mysteries of women before dozing off. I woke when she shook my shoulder gently. What? I said, trying to focus. The big four came out of her mouth. We need to talk. I was instantly alert, nothing good ever came after those words in my experience. Do you like me? I couldn't read her eyes. Yes, I do, I answered honestly. How much? I don't know what you want here, Amanda. Clue a dumb guy in. She slapped me, and as I rubbed my jaw, she went into a rant. I guess what I'm asking here is, do you love me? Not a friend love, but a full-grown man-woman type of love. Because I've loved you for a long time, and you've never noticed. I know I'm a lot younger than you, I'm uneducated, I have no social graces, I'm loud, jealous, scared, and that's just the start. I can't take it anymore, it hurts. So if you don't love me, I'm moving out. I stopped her rant with a kiss. Hush now, I said sternly. Are you trying to talk me out of having feelings for you? Because if you are, you're too late. And all the things you say you don't have are no matter. You have something much more important, you have my heart. I think she actually went out when she heard what I said. When she recovered, she was in my lap, kissing and crying until she went to sleep. Did we jump into her bed and make passionate love? No. She was still damaged and fragile. So, I held her until she cried herself out, took her to my bed, and tucked her in. Then I went out on the back deck, looking at the stars and wondering what happens next. I was out there for over an hour. When I came back in, she had gotten a shirt out, put it on, and crawled back into bed. When I lay down, she snuggled into my arms, mumbled something that sounded like "love you," and drifted off again. I held her for a long time, reveling in her feel before I finally dozed off. I woke up alone to the smell of breakfast. She was flitting around the kitchen, getting everything perfect. I startled her when I swept her off her feet, kissing the back of her slender neck. She stiffened at first, then relaxed and giggled. Let me go, honey, or all you'll have for breakfast is burnt waffles. After breakfast, before she cleared the table, we talked. It was Saturday, and we had nowhere to be. She snuggled into my lap. Honey, you know I love you. Please go slow with me, I'm carrying around a lot of baggage. She told me the story of her life in between tears and hugs. She'd been happy until she was 10 when her dad died. Her mom was never a strong person, and she slid down a slope of depression and bad choices into a sea of alcohol. She was in multiple relationships and had a stepfather. When she turned 18, the system turned her loose. She ended up with a guy out of desperation and gave him her virginity. Apparently, it was borderline assault every time they were intimate. He then tried to get her to work as a prostitute for money, but she ran away and ended up here. My heart aches for her. I want you so badly, Jace, but I freeze up. Help me. I even got her a therapist for months after it happened. We'd been getting closer, touching, talking, and she eventually felt comfortable enough to walk around in tiny little panties. Although Amanda was not fond of alcohol, she had grown fond of wine thanks to our client. One night, after finishing half a bottle, the floodgates opened, but I still took it slow the first time we made slow and tender love. The next morning, she woke me up and said, I'm standing in front of the engagement rings. Really? The tears were flowing already. Dropping to a knee, now you know why I wore the suit. Marry me. After she calmed down and sobbed, I believe she tried on every ring in the store within my budget until she chose a simply stone and band. Upon entering the bar, an instant party broke out, with the women gathering around the one she desired. The men said, You idiot, you're planning a wedding. The best advice we could give you is to agree to everything she wants if you can afford it and stay as far away from them as you can. She wanted a church wedding, so we found one nearby, but we had to attend services for at least 6 weeks before the wedding. It turned out to be a very good thing because the reverend was a pretty smart old guy and he insisted on a few counseling sessions first. When the disaster that was my first marriage came out, along with everything that had happened to her, she sobbed for me, looked me in the eye, and promised never to do that to me again. I believed her, and we became members. We didn't go every week, but I accused her of using it as an excuse to buy more dresses. I can still close my eyes and see Amanda walking down the aisle. The ivory lace and silk dress hugged her like a second skin, highlighting her shape. Her thick mane of hair fell down her back shining in the light. Helen stood in as mother of the bride, Sam gave her away, and Fat Boy was my best man. She hardly wore anything else except when she worked because she wanted to keep her job so she could have money of her own. The first time you say I don't look good in dresses, I'll stop wearing them, she said, smirking. Everyone from my job was there except Gail, and almost everyone from the bar attended. They escorted our limo to the airport on their bikes. Mom was there. She fell hard for Amanda. She had always wanted a daughter. Amanda warmed up more slowly, but when we left, she leaned in and said something that brought fresh tears to her eyes. I asked about it on the way to the airport. I said, "Thank you, Mom, for sharing your son. I'll return the favor with your grandchildren." It seemed to make her happy. Then she distracted me by showing me hints of her wedding lingerie. We honeymooned in Belize because I had been to Cancun on my first honeymoon, and I did not want overlapping memories. I found out it was the first trip out of the country Amanda had ever been on. It was actually the first trip anywhere. We had a ball, we hit the beaches, and she stayed under the umbrella a lot, her fair skin not caring much for the hot sun. I loved to watch her red hair shine as she walked. She shocked the hell out of me by dragging me to a topless beach. Amanda removed her cover and was only wearing a tiny thing. "Shut your mouth, honey. I wanted to give you something to remember me, walking around nearly nude while men lusted after me, knowing that only you would ever touch me. I'll admit that I had to jump into the water about every 5 minutes to try to get my erection to go down." Her small frame made her 32 C cups appear much larger than they were, and her bum made men stop talking as she passed. I saw one wife jab her husband in the ribs over it. We attempted to kill each other with sex that night, but it didn't work. 6 glorious months went by. I made her quit the bar so she'd be home with me. She grumbled, but did it. She was walking around with that secret smile. I recognized she was up to something. To fill her time, she went back to school, going for a degree in hospitality in food management. I supported her fully but didn't understand her degree choice. She called me at work, sounding panicky. "Honey, I need you to come home now. It's important." I left immediately. She was pacing back and forth, obviously agitated. She rushed into my arms. I was starting to get a bad feeling. I knew it was bad when she started out with, "Honey, do you love me?" Do I have to even answer that? She relaxed, took my hand. "I've got something to tell you and something to ask you. Hear me out, please, before you say anything." She had been looking for her sister for a few weeks, wanting to connect. She was 12 now, and she hadn't seen her since she was 4. It weighed on her, thinking how good her life was now and remembering her experience with foster care. First, I found my sister. She doesn't even remember me. That was pretty hard. She looks alive, like Dad. That's great, honey. I'm sure she'll warm up after she gets to know you. Is she in a good home? Adopted? Details, honey. I'd like to meet my little sister-in-law. I was excited, knowing how much she had been wanting this. A tear trickled down her cheek. "No," she said sadly. She wasn't adopted, and she was in a bad place when I found her. A place so bad they had to remove her and the others from the home. "Where is she now?" "You haven't lost her again, have you?" She hugged me. "No, she's really close." She took my hand, holding tightly. "She's in the spare bedroom." Well, after I collected my thoughts, I had Amanda bring her out. She was only 12, but she was already taller than Amanda. Her hair was black, her nose a little broader, but other than that, they had identical features, same mouth, same elegant neck, same expressive hands. She introduced us. I went to hug her, and she backed up, so I held out my hand. "It's nice to finally meet you, Celeste. Amanda talks about you often. Where the hell has she been while I was living in that hole? Why hasn't she come looking for me before now? I could have been here years ago." The sheer anger in her voice shook me. Amanda stepped in. "I'm here now, honey. I came for you as soon as I was able to. For years ago, I couldn't take care of myself. There was no way I could give an 8-year-old what she needed. I had to grow up first. I'm sorry if you're angry. Let's see if we can make it up to you." Celeste was on a roll. Oh, that's just great. Now I get to live with the Cleavers, wear frilly dresses, and giggle over boys. News flash, I know all about boys. Why do you think they closed the home down? Guys want one thing, and it's right here. She grabbed her crotch. Just as soon as you're out the door, hubby here will try to make me his little witch. Let's get this over with. Give me some cash and turn me loose, and I'm yours for the night. Deal? Amanda was shocked into silence. I was furious. Maybe we'll just give you a warm bed for the night and send you on your way tomorrow. If what you had is better than what we're offering, go for it. Come to think about it, I haven't offered you a thing. I tell you this, if we talk it over and decide we want you with us, you'll keep a civil tongue in your head and not give us any trouble. The most important thing in my life is my wife, and I will not have her hurt or suffer because you had a hard life. Hers hasn't been sweetness and light. Listen to her story sometime, see if you have any empathy. Are we clear here? She had paled and backed away from me, but just as soon as I stopped, she got her bravado back. I don't need a father figure. I don't need a sister or a mother. I don't need a damn thing from either of you. Clear enough? I turned to Amanda, hugging her. She started crying. I stroked her hair. I'm sorry, honey. I know how badly you wanted this. It seems you may be too late. It's not your fault, you hear me? It is not your fault. Maybe she'll eventually grow up and realize that. I stepped back and looked at both of them. I'm going to start the grill. You two talk, see if you can come to terms. Celeste, you're here for at least the night. I expect you to be civil and stop cussing. They talked while I set the grill up and cooked. I left the curtain open just in case. I could hear the yelling. I saw Amanda cry. It broke my heart. Then Amanda said something that caused Celeste to cry, and they started hugging. Maybe there was hope after all. There wasn't much conversation over dinner, but there were no outbursts either. Celeste ate 2 steaks and 2 huge baked potatoes. She even helped Amanda wash the dishes. They came into the living room to tell me they were going out for about an hour. They had things they had to pick up, clothes for Celeste, I guessed. I sat and thought while they were gone, wondering about a society that treated children like unwanted baggage. They came back, and Celeste was actually giggling. She even said goodnight to us after modeling her new pajamas, complete with feet. We talked in bed after she was asleep. Can we keep her, at least for a while? I'll be responsible for her, you won't even notice her, I said with a dry chuckle. I doubt that. All right, she can stay temporarily, but she has to behave. Thank you, honey. I knew I could count on you. The state was happy to give Amanda custody. She was in a stable marriage, lived in a good neighborhood, and had references from Sam, Helen, and half the bar. Plus, they wouldn't have to pay anything. It threw them for a loop when I asked where her Social Security money was. No one had filed for it. I got a lawyer, and he did the paperwork. When it was settled, they had to give all the money she was due for the last 8 years to her, to us actually, as guardians. She also got $700 a month until she was 18. We put it into a college fund. She could access it at 18 if she went to school. If she didn't, she got the full amount when she was 21. It would almost be enough to pay for the full for years if she was careful. Celeste wasn't as grateful as we had hoped, complaining she should get it sooner to buy a car. That's almost 4 years away. Let's see what happens between now and then. I ended up being the bad guy to make it easier on Amanda. Celeste resented it tremendously but knew better than to try to play us off each other. The first time got her grounded for a month. She was behind at school, mostly from not paying attention. She refused help from me at first, but Amanda kinda forced her, giving her rewards for good grades. During this time, I was doing really well at my job. The campaign for the winemaker was a roaring success and led to bigger things. My boss was scared to death I was going to leave. He knew I'd had offers. So, he Struck a deal with me. I could buy into the company, and he'd match every percent I bought up to 7 at the current valuation. I would be able to afford about 1% a year, so in 7 years, I'd have 14% of the company. Amanda and I talked it over and decided to do it. I liked it here, so did Amanda. Celeste ran away twice. The first time, she was gone for days before they found her at a bus station and stayed away. Amanda cried the whole time she was gone. She came back defiant and angry. I waited until I could talk to her alone and laid it out. You know, you'd be a good kid if you'd let yourself. You're pretty smart. It looks like you could figure out what kind of life you would have in the streets, a drugged, disease-riddled 30-year-old, most likely old before your time and dead before 30. Is that what you want? Here it is, plain and simple, you run again, and you won't come back. In 3 more years, you'll be 16. I'll pay your court costs for emancipation, give you your social security money, and wish you a nice life. But my wife has just about shed her last tear over you. Do you understand? I think I scared her. 6 months later, she didn't come home from school. When she showed up, she found the doors locked. Thank goodness Amanda wasn't there. I opened the door and talked through the screen. I've already boxed her, you can come in and wait for dessert. I've already called them, they should be here in about 45 minutes. I opened the door and let her in. She huddled on the couch, rocking back and forth. Soon, she was crying, then begging. Please, please, please don't send me away. I'll be good, I promise. I didn't mean to leave. I panicked when I got busted for smoking at school. They suspended me for 3 days. It'll kill Amanda. I didn't know what to do. I was surprised, she hated smokers. Were you smoking? No, but I was with them, cutting class. Please don't send me away. Celeste, look at me. She raised her head. You have got to learn. You have a support system. Amanda loves you, I love you. We're a family, we're here to provide guidance, a good home, and love. Let us do our job, all right? You should have come to us and told us what you did. We would have punished you, been disappointed, but we wouldn't have stopped loving you. The tears started in earnest when I told her I loved her, and she flew into my arms, sobbing her heart out. Amanda walked in. What's going on? She asked nervously. Our child is growing up, honey. She did something bad, got caught, came home, and told me all about it. I truly believe she understands what she did and is sorry. I'll let her tell you about it. I handed her off and went outside, catching the desk worker at the mailbox. Hi, Denise, sorry it was a false alarm. She got caught doing something she shouldn't have and got suspended for 3 days. Nothing real serious, but she was afraid to face us. Amanda is with her now, getting to the bottom of what happened. They're inside if you want to check on them. She sighed. I ought to. But I think I can trust you now. I can get home and cook Fred's dinner and eat as a family for once. Thanks, Denise, I said, feeling bad for taking time away from her family. Why don't you guys come over Sunday? I got a couple of Boston butts I've been thinking about roasting. That sounds good, Jace, but it's homecoming at our church. There's going to be a big meal. Why don't you guys come there instead? There's an informal competition among a few of us to see how many guests we can get to come. You guys might put me ahead. I told her I'd run it by the girls and went inside. Who was that? It was Denise, honey. She saw me outside and stopped to invite us to homecoming. You guys want to go? I wouldn't mind it. They got that new young reverend, HEK, kind of cute. I'll give her a call, see what she wants me to bring. Celeste watched me grinning. I tried to look stern, but failed. She hopped off the couch. I know I'm grounded for a month, but I can go to church, right? Bobby Smith goes to that church, doesn't he? Celeste, you're 13. You've got time for that later, much later. Between you two, lightning will strike the church. They both grinned at me, and Celeste said, "Men," then went to help her sister with dinner. That was the exact moment when I knew my little family was going to be okay. For our small family, this had been a very significant week. Celeste was scheduled to begin learning to drive during the summer and had made the honor roll for the first time. I was really afraid of someone that young operating a vehicle. Amanda received her diploma tonight, clutching it as if it were a life preserver in a choppy sea. Even better, she got to give a brief speech that moved everyone in the house to tears. She spoke about her early years, her sisters, and how having someone who supported and believed in her had allowed her to go so far in life. She thanked Celeste for being the ideal daughter and me for being the best husband ever. We threw a cookout for her the following day, and our little house was packed. Have faith, have hope, believe in yourself. You may not get as lucky as I did, but you'll be a better person for trying. To celebrate her achievement, Mom, our bar friends, Denise from DSS, my boss, and, somewhat unexpectedly, Jack Edwards and his wife came down. I mistook them for still being in Italy. They waited to take Celeste for the weekend long after everyone else had left. They were a late couple who never had kids. June treated Amanda like the daughter she never had after falling in love. She was ecstatic when Celeste appeared. Once a month, she looked after her for a week so Amanda and I could have some alone time. Celeste always returned from her visits wearing at least one new outfit. Mom participated as well. Celeste was hardly ever home in the summer between them. Almost immediately after I complained, the pack jumped me. "Your girls have had a hard life, Jace. The best thing that ever happened to them was you. I've always wanted a daughter and a grandchild. Thank you for these, so stop complaining because your daughter is growing up and bonding with her grandparents. We're supposed to spoil her." I have an idea to call out of Celeste. After that speech, Mom sat back and grinned a little, saying, "Give us a couple more. Grandchildren, it'll make sharing easier." We glanced at Celeste upon hearing her sob. Before long, the women were gathered around Celeste, giving her gentle pats and calming mutters. I started to ask after they calmed down, but Amanda shooed me away. June dove straight in. "Listen to your mother, Jace. You too, Amanda. We're not getting any younger here. Give them to us soon while we're still fit enough to chase them around." I looked at Jack and he was just grinning. Celeste hugged me and clung to me for a long time before saying, "I think it's an excellent idea." We were not as frequent visitors to the bar as we once were. Your options are limited by children. I still went after work sometimes, but Amanda became Celeste's Uber mom, taking her to games, band practice, soccer practice, and other events since Celeste usually had something going on that needed transportation. I made sure to attend all of her games even though I wasn't usually available for any of that. I sat and listened to her and her teammates chatting after a soccer match one bright Saturday afternoon as they tried to decide where to go celebrate their victory. I felt a little uneasy about her going out in groups these days because at these events, they usually paired up. Amanda chuckled. "Even if you'd like to, Han, you can't stop her from growing up. This is good practice for the kids when the time comes for one-on-one dating, and they're almost all chaperoned. The only exception is when they go to the movies and hang out at the mall. Trust her, she would die before she'd disappoint her daddy." It was shortly thereafter, and we were attending an event at church. I approached the kids who wanted to go get ice cream later. She batted her eyes at me and said, "Here's your daddy now. Ask him if it's all right." It hit me hard and I started crying, "Daddy, can I go with Mrs. Jenkins and my friends for ice cream?" It was Amanda who had to drive us home after she laughed and said, "Sure. Baby. Here's a 20. She scurried off, yelling out behind her, "Bye, Mom, bye, Dad. I'll be home by 7. It's just easier to be Mom and Dad than to have to explain everything every time someone brings it up, which is what happens to me. She smiled and said, "Besides, you treat me like your kid anyway, plus I like it." I liked it too. All their friends helped out, but it soon became clear that Helen couldn't keep up. Amanda came to me one Sunday afternoon after church. Celeste was leaving with friends, and we were going to ride. Our friend Sam had suffered a stroke, not a major one, but serious enough to force him to reduce his workload. I hoped it wasn't too bad. I love being your wife and mom to Celeste, but Helen needs help, and I want to use my degree. Let me get it all out before you say anything, it's important to me. Sam and Helen have both agreed after we discussed it. I'd like to return to work at the bar as a partner rather than an employee. With Sam's assistance, Helen will handle the bar while I handle the kitchen. Will you give it some thought? I did while we rode. We stopped at the bar, and I looked at it with new eyes. It was in good shape but could use a little sprucing up. Helen came by, and Amanda excused herself, going into the kitchen. What do you think? I believe there is much to think about. Given my past and the fact that my wife follows a different schedule, I don't want to lose her to a business. Celeste is another thing to take into account, and I'll need to know how much money we're talking about. She knows I can't refuse her, so in the end, I'll probably say yes. Helen patted my hand. You won't lose her, honey. She's already made plans, so she won't be spending a lot of time apart from you. She has ambitious plans once the startup is finished and everyone has received training. Even Sam and I are excited about her. We had discussed it, of course. I had given her complete control over our finances a long time ago because she was so good at stretching dollars. Yeah, I had a rough idea, but she usually paid the bills. Our cars were paid for. Even the 3-year-old minivan she had to drive to get Celeste and her friends around. We had purchased our house when our lease was up, so our mortgage was low because we'd made a sizable down payment. By now, I owned 4% of my business and was making a respectable income for our size. Our savings account was fairly healthy, so I didn't have to argue about where the money was coming from. In the end, we owned 30% of the bar. We invested a little money on updating the kitchen and had a grand reopening, which brought in a lot of business almost immediately, all the regular customers. Amanda worked wonders with the kitchen. Gone were the plain burgers and fries. They still offered them dressed up a little. There were new toppings to select from, such as avocado slices, hot peppers, spinach leaves, different flavors of cheese slices, and anything else she could think of to put on a burger. The same with the hot dogs. A favorite was covered with grilled onions and mushrooms, hot mustard, and dill relish. Fries were no longer offered. Instead, you got home fries, sliced almost as thin as chips, hand-cut, and soaked overnight in various flavors. She also added soups, all homemade, potato with cheese and bacon bits, tomato with half and half blended in, a pork-based stew with a lot of herbs was the most popular. One of her upgrades was a large gas grill, and you could have grilled veggies and seasonings. She insisted on buying from local farmers as much as possible and had a large chalkboard at the kitchen door telling which farm provided the vegetables or meats for the day. The farmers loved it. The regulars were a little leery at first, but soon you could hear discussions and sometimes arguments over which farm provided the best produce and which fresh herbs and spices complemented which dishes best. It was a riot to see two big bikers almost come to blows over which soup was better, pumpkin or butternut squash. She also added a wine list, although locals with Jack's getting top billing. It was funny, in our state, you couldn't serve wine in a place that had pool tables, so they had to go. Helen and Sam really didn't mind because that was usually where the fight started, and they could add 8 more tables in the space. We didn't even know it until the review came out. The best hidden jewel in the state was the caption, followed by an amazing review. Sam's Bar and Grill, located on Swan Pond Road just outside of the city limits, has been around for 75 years, a local favorite. Helen took the lead and worked with a local brewer to feature their beers on draft. A local food critic, hearing good things, paid us a visit. It has been thrust into the spotlight by Amanda Gooding, the minority owner, and her recent renovation of the kitchen. The regulars would have probably preferred it to stay in the area, but now that word has gotten out, there's no turning back. College students, farmers, bikers, white-collar workers, and blue-collar workers. They are all mingling together in a friendly manner. The only time I heard people arguing was when 2 diners couldn't agree on which herb, basil or rosemary, should be used more prominently in the pork stew. Since the biker was bigger, and I've always liked rosemary, I decided to side with him. It offers inexpensive, well-seasoned, and straightforward food. It's really clean, the ambience is laid back, and the service is superb. With a 102 rating, the sanitation is just 1 point below perfect. Mrs. Gooding responded to my compliments by saying that if she had to work her entire staff to death, they would receive the highest rating in 6 months. It doesn't sell liquor because it's outside the city limits, it only sells wine and beer. The manager and principal owner, Helen Connors, and her husband, Sam, state that they do not plan to obtain a liquor license. It's just so much easier without liquor, she replied. The bar area, which has a full selection of national brands in addition to local wines and beers, has the aesthetic appeal of an old-fashioned saloon. The staff is knowledgeable and can easily distinguish between a dry white and a sweet red, as well as between a pilsner, lager, and bock. Although a little out of the way, the trip is worthwhile. I have had 3 different meals there, and each time I have been happy with the quantity, quality, and service. Just one more thing, I insist that you taste the banana pudding, it's my weakness and the best I've ever had, and I've had a lot of tastes over the years. All Helen and Amanda could do was smile at each other. I didn't know who he was, Amanda questioned. Celeste and I had dinner there the nights Amanda worked, and she always planned her break so she could join us. I just thought he was a nosy customer with a little knowledge. I had no issue with Celeste's desire to begin working there as soon as she was old enough to obtain a child work permit. Now that many families were present, the bar was where most of the heavy drinking took place. It was bike night on Thursday, and plenty of guys riding all kinds of bikes showed up, including members of the local Harley owner group. We lacked a private room, but they wanted to have their meetings there. After discussing it with Sam and Helen, they hired an architect and nearly tripled the space. Even that area was soon occupied. By this point, I owned 8% of our agency. Celeste turned 16, started working part-time after school and during the week, and learned how to cook with her mother or sister. After high school, she intended to enroll in the nearby culinary school. She insisted on having the Dart, but I couldn't give a 16-year-old girl something that would go that quickly, so we bought her a Mustang instead. It was a nice little V6 car instead of one of those turbo monsters, but it still moved fairly quickly. When Amanda approached her 26th birthday, I was eager to begin our small family. Although she agreed, she preferred to hold off on having Celeste graduate so she could focus on the child. Celeste chuckled as she overheard our conversation. I thought Amanda's argument made a lot of sense, but she just laughed and said we'd talk about it later. Mom, do I look like a baby? I can take care of myself. You should think about, Dad, give me a little sister or niece or brother or nephew while he's still young enough to help take care of them. Our company was growing too. Jack's advertising campaign had brought in a lot more business, particularly from the nearby alcoholic beverage industries. We were now working with 2 more wineries, 3 breweries, and a nearby distillery that was beginning to garner national notice. I ran into an old friend at a regional conference. It was nearly 6 years since I last saw Ida. She was still an ebony goddess, but her beauty had grown with age. I got up behind her as soon as I saw her. Still got to think about color lines? I responded. Naturally, I had gathered her up in a big hug while I spoke. I got tired of waiting for you, but there's a lot of white boys in here right now practically drooling over you. She was shocked at first, but when she recognized me, she gave me another hug. Jace, man, it is good to see you. How are you? Where have you been? You just disappeared off the face of the earth. I've missed you. There were times when I needed good advice and a sounding board. We sat down for an hour and talked. Her spouse had cheated on her, and she had discovered it, leading to her divorce. It seems that he was not as inflexible about color lines as I was. A skinny little blonde with the figure of a 12-year-old boy, I caught him. He promised it was over. We went to counseling. I was just about sure we were over it when she rolled up pregnant. I never saw him again after that. He didn't even show up at the final decree. I clasped her hand. I understand how you feel. Sorry, Ida. Does anyone currently exist in your life? Not too soon, I suppose. I've been considering changing things. After it was sold, I don't like the new owners of my agency. I believe that my exceptional skill set is the only reason they continue to employ me. I smiled at her and pulled out a card, saying, I really need a change. Have you ever considered moving to the sunny south? Give it some thought and give me a call. I held up my hand so she could see the wedding band, and to my surprise, she took the card. Before we left, she asked me about my life. I literally thank God every day for the life I have now. I said, I'm blessed with a wonderful partner, a well-behaved daughter, a fulfilling career, and an abundance of wonderful friends. I pulled out images of Celeste and Amanda, and she gave them a questioning look. How on earth did you get into a relationship with someone so attractive? With the exception of her hair color, the daughter resembles her exactly and is extremely young. When she was 6, did she have a daughter? I didn't realize it at the time, but neither of us mentioned Becky once. I laughed and gave my explanation, and she gave me a strong hug, clearly happy for me. 2 months later, my boss called me into his office and handed me a resume, saying, look this over. She mentioned that you trained her and provided you as a reference. Is she a good one? Although I may have trained her, she's a natural, I said, smiling as I took a closer look. She's better than I am now. He moaned, hire her, then have her report to you. If we can afford her, we'd be fools not to hire her. We need to talk about something important right now. It doesn't need to leave this room, and I haven't told a soul yet. Dear John Charles, I'm sick. It's rather grave. My brain has a tumor on it. They recently discovered it, and I have to get rid of it or it will kill me. I have a 50% chance of not making it. Gloria and I had a conversation, and she concurs that, should I survive, you should take charge of the place until I recover. If I don't, you still need to take charge and maintain the facility until Gloria is able to make her decision. His announcement rocked our small group of friends pretty hard because he and Jack were very close, having been for years. On the day of the surgery, everyone in the office, including Gail, was there, along with many of his friends. He called all of us into his room to say goodbye, just in case. Ken, June, Amanda, Celeste, and I took turns holding Gloria, and when we weren't, we were in the chapel praying for him. He was in the operating room for 5 hours, and when the doctor emerged, everyone held their breath. So far, he's doing fine. I'm not too worried about his prognosis. Before he is well enough to receive visitors, it will be tomorrow. We cried, we yelled, and we gave thanks to God and the doctors. Alice fit right in, to the point she became my right-hand woman. Amanda and Celeste loved her, and she was soon a part of our group of friends. Pretty soon, the matchmaking started. Married women have this thing about a single woman being in their circle. She fought them, saying she wasn't ready yet. She spent a lot of time in the bar, and soon everyone knew she was our friend, and that made her their friend. I'll never forget the day another friend invited her to ride with him on a poker run. He was huge, bearded, and white, and perhaps the gentlest man I'd ever met. Put him in a social situation where there were kids, and in half an hour, they were clustered around him like he was the Pied Piper. His wife turned out to be cold, conniving, having multiple affairs before he found out. It destroyed him, and she called in the biggest box she'd ever meet. Her new boyfriend thought he could get away with disrespecting him. Huge mistake. Sam and I bailed him out, got him a lawyer, and made it go away, but the damage was done. It had been 18 months, and he still hadn't even thought about dating. It surprised us all by accepting if they went on a date first to get to know each other. It must have been a heck of a date because they smiled like crazy on the poker run. 8 months later, she was sporting a really nice rock and was 3 months pregnant. I usually steered clients toward someone else because when they tank, they never understand why. However, my life took yet another drastic turn when a woman named Alice Johnson called to ask if we could handle her campaign. She even had it planned out. That said, I was hesitant to accept her request. Her new sister-in-law was Bettina Bang Bang Burke, now Stewart, a middleweight MMA fighter and world champion in her class. The campaign wasn't for her, but rather for a charity they both supported, so I was hesitant but agreed to meet. Ida and I met her at the airport, had lunch, and she explained her goals, which, I must admit, were very clever. We made a few minor tweaks, conducted a few focus groups, and ultimately decided to move forward with the plan. Ads soon began to appear mostly in print and on billboards. They were a version of the Got Milk campaign, with the official catchphrase of the National Adoption Coalition, a loose coalition of agencies created to place children in loving homes, being used in place of milk. The campaign quickly gained significant national traction. We even worked in the milk mustache. The ads showed famous people, all adopted as kids, with a group of kids from different homes, usually in their home city. There was an appeal to think about adopting one of the kids, and local dairies were tied in, promising a certain number of gallons donated to the homes for every adoption that went through. The idea was helped along by Betty and Mark Stewart, who posed with their newly adopted son, which quickly became a favorite. Soon, we had spokespeople pleading with us to allow them to help. Professional athletes, business moguls, actors, Olympians, Nobel Prize winners, and rock and country stars, all adopted, all literally begging to help. We featured many of them with their adoptive parents. Some had even adopted themselves. Ida's new husband Roy and Amanda went along, of course, and it was very satisfying to be there when my company, High Country Advertising, won a national award. Howard, my boss, was still too weak to travel, so he sent Ida and me to accept it. We made our acceptance speech, apologized to Alice Johnson, who we insisted would come and share the stage with us, for stealing her idea, and thanked her and the audience for honoring us. After the awards, Ida and I had a bet going on who would have to buy the loser breakfast. I had 9 offers, and Ida had 16. I told her I wanted steak and eggs. As we were ready to leave, I was looking around for Amanda, and I saw that she and Ida had gone to the ladies' room. It was then that I saw Becky. Her expression was cautious, bordering on fear. "Hello, Jace. What's up with you?" I looked her over. She was still beautiful, a little heavier, but not much. Her hair was much shorter, her lips seemed fuller, but otherwise, she was still the beauty I fell in love with. "I'm good, Beck. How about you?" "Oh, I'm fine," she said, dismissively waving a hand. "Greetings on your honor." It felt good to see Ida once more. "She claims to work for you now," I said in response to the implication that she actually works with me. "I currently manage High Country Advertising as a minority owner. Been there ever since." "Okay, from then on." "It appeals to me." I don't know if it hurt her feelings, but I grinned and rubbed my band. "Yes, there is. I like the area and the people." She glanced down at my finger. "Seems there is one there you really like." She twisted what looked like a rock on her finger, making a nervous gesture, and said, "I have, and I'm content." "I see you found someone too. But Jace, do you ever think about me when you're lying there beside her late at night? We could still be together if only you would forgive me." I felt a sharp intake of breath behind me as I carefully withdrew her hand. "No, we weren't, Beck. I've never gotten over you. We were supposed to be together. Were we, I never would have found Amanda, and you would never have cheated. The tip of her little finger holds more love and faithfulness than the entirety of your body. I apologize, Becky. Kindly endeavor to lead a happy life." I felt a tiny hand slide into mine as I turned to leave. "Who's your friend, honey?" "This is Becky, someone I used to know in my old town," inquired Amanda, wearing a flat smile. Instead of shaking hands, they merely gave each other sidelong glances and engaged in a mental cat fight. "Becky, I'd like to present my wife, Amanda." I looked at them both, 26-year-old Amanda still full of youth and mid-30s Becky wearing a simple black dress. Her copper-red hair cascaded down her back, and her green floor-length gown matched her eyes. Once again, I was struck with how truly fortunate I was. Amanda released her grip and turned to face me. She stopped, put her hand to her mouth, and giggled. "Honey, I know it's early, but would you take me back to the room? I seem to be having an evening bout of morning sickness." Oops, I was going to surprise you tonight. Too late now. Congratulations, honey, it's a boy. Suddenly, the only thing in the world worthy of my attention was standing in front of me. I believe I heard someone gasp behind me. She giggled as I held her in my arms, kissing and sobbing. It took her beating me on the back a few times before I let her go. The bar was filled with a boisterous celebration. With a smile, Amanda thanked each person. I just wanted to make sure you were paying close attention to me. In New York, you were speaking with someone I know. I'll wear your balls as earrings if I ever see you and that witch together again. Are you following? She began to squeeze me, so I gave her a firm promise that it would never, ever happen again. She released her grip and purred, "Thank you, honey," and I heard what you told her. It was very sweet, and I still want that girl. In addition, you're going to need those balls. Please feel free to express your opinions in the space provided for comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.